must say, when I write, I don't think in those terms particularly. You know, I've got other concerns, probably more close concerns than such general concepts as aesthetic excellence. And so in my mind, when I'm thinking about it, I kind of flip it on its head, and I thought, well, what would anesthetic excellence mean? And that'd be like, I'm going in for an operation and I want the anaesthetic to work really, really well, so I feel nothing. And so aesthetic excellence would be the reverse of that, where I'd have total feeling for the characters and for the problem, the situation they're in. I'm at one with them, and rooting for them in some way. That's in terms of the people, the characters. Then, for me, generally, I think art, and I hate these generalizations, I just write, but when you reflect on it, art tends to, or at least narrative, tends to impose pattern. And some of the aesthetics are about that sense of harmony that comes from the imposition by the author of a pattern on the chaos of life. And if that's done well, whether subtly or not, but if it's done well, there is something that feels good about it. And then perhaps lastly, and I don't know if this is essential, but it's certainly one element that I notice, is that if the ideas within the text are in some way innovative or thought-provoking, then that makes it a better read than if the text doesn't spur me to think about things in any different way. So those are the kind of three elements that I think of as heading towards maybe aesthetic excellence. I'm sure that there are writers who deal with only one or two of them, or just one of them, or whatever, and you can analyse that and see what the effect is. But when all three are present, then it's usually great. It's a great piece of work. Plausibility. I think, and I guess it's just speculation for me, but readers will forgive a lot, because that suspension of disbelief. They know it's a story. They know that it's not true, and if you can get the characters such that they in some way shine, they run in such a way that people feel, the readers feel, I get this person. I'm not that person necessarily, but I get this person. I can feel what they feel, and I know why they're feeling that way. Even if those feelings are very extreme or based on unusual circumstances, that sympathy or empathy, whichever way it is, that the reader gets, that I think that's the bedrock of the plausibility, and from that one can move to a plot. Different people have different feelings for plot. Some groan when everything slots in very perfectly at the end, and others like more open-ended. So in terms of the plausibility, the use of coincidence in plot is one fabulous thing that I've noticed, that some writers use a lot of it, some don't. And it has different effects in terms of the plausibility. If there's too much of it, people go, yeah, right, whatever. And if there's, you can pull off a plot that seems to run naturally and yet has that sense of closure, then that enhances its plausibility maybe. In terms of ideas, I don't know. They've just got to be well presented, well argued, not explicitly argued necessarily, but if they arise organically from the situation the characters are in, then the ideas should feel important and therefore plausible. So it's a sort of naturalness, or the fake naturalness of the setting that we create as fiction writers, that elevates the idea to the realm of the plausible. Well, usually I don't know. I was going to say I'm petrified. Usually it depends on the audience. In that, it's a very strange thing. As a writer, you're solitary, and you're penning something that you spend a lot of time with yourself, meditating on your own concerns, and crafting, polishing the senses, and you're thrown into the upheaval of these restless individuals who may or may not be keyed into what you're keyed into, and may be waiting to hear from you, but may not. You may be just a warm-up act and the band coming on, and they're just looking at the watch, what have you. It's a difficult thing, but going back in time, I used to busk in the streets, and I learned from busking that no audience owes you anything, unless you're good enough. When you're busking, the audience just walk past. Sometimes they walk past anyway. You're doing brilliantly. They just don't care. They've had a bad day themselves, And so that's the first thing, that I'd never had a sense that an audience should pay attention to what I'm saying. And I start from that. I start from the approach that, they've got other things to do. Life is very busy, etc., etc. Depending on the audiences, I'll work different stories. Generally, with an audience in general, I don't tell the story first. I'm telling you my secrets now. I rarely just go in and tell a story. What I do is, even when I enter a room in which the audience is present, I enter it conscious that that audience is present. So everything's a performance, in other words. How you walk into the room is a performance. What you say, which isn't the story, that's important. So there are various things when I used to tell horror stories or scary stories, I used to say things like, just before we start, is there anyone in the room with a heart pacemaker? And that in itself, it sets the wobbles going among people. And so sometimes there's a craft that isn't the story that is going on, which is the storyteller's art. Or can we turn the lights down? The other thing I've done often is that it can be intimidating if you get a huge number of people, and there's just little you on the stage. And so often I've talked to the audience beforehand, informally, and just to find out why they're there, what state of mind they are in, what they know, what they expect. I try and learn a lot about them, as much as I can, so that when I get up and tell a story, I'm not telling it to this blank wall, this anonymous mass of people. I've got a sense of who they are, and I find that it works really well for me to know the audience a little bit, because you can generalise, you can, but nevertheless, it's good to know where they're coming from, as much as possible. So that's the first thing. Then in terms of the live audience and the flexibility of it, you often get promoters, if you're booked as a storyteller, and they say, okay, we were going to ask you to do 10 minutes, but so-and-so has dropped out. Can you just elongate the story and make it 60 minutes instead? You're like, what? Or often the reverse, we've run out of time, so can you do a really short set this time, please? And I think that those demands teach you what is essential in a story and how best to get those things across. And also the demands that a longer short story makes compared with a short story, the details that allow you to embellish the subplots, things like that allow you to extend the story. So I've navigated so many different audiences over the years that I guess I'm less methodical about it now. I'm more intuitive, and I just go on and kind of get a feel for the audience. Every audience seems to be unique. They all have their own way of being, and often there are different levels or textures to the audience, and you're appealing to different layers within it. So irony can go over some people's heads, but others love it. And then the other thing I found was that there are some audiences and sometimes when you're telling stories where you signal the story. And now I'm telling you a story, you know. The classic language for that is once upon a time. You know, it really, once upon a time just means shut up, I'm telling you a story now, everybody be still. You know, you can signal it with the language. And then, of course, when people are sitting down, shuffling around, and you can't start the important part of the story, which everyone needs to grasp until everyone's settled. And so you find your beginnings go on for as long as necessary until everyone's settled. You know, no interruption, people coming in, coming out, all things like that. But yeah, it's one of those things where you have to adjust to where the audience is at and where you feel you can take them. But there are occasions when you can say audiences are dangerous or they're bad for you, in that there are things that people know who stand in front of audiences know work for audiences. So certain comedy works, a certain way of telling a story works very easily. So you can get lazy, and you know, I used to say to myself, and maybe even others, that popularity is dangerous, audiences are dangerous, live audiences, because they make you quick, they make you efficient, and they make you a bit safe. It's challenging a live audience, you know, especially if you're getting paid some money, you know, you think you won't get another booking if you mess it up. So, for various reasons, there are certain stories that have to be read rather than told, I feel, and there are certain themes that are not done well in front of a live audience, and it's only over time that I've found myself thinking about why I tell the stories I tell in front of a live audience and why I write the stories I write, where there's an intimacy of one-on-one, where somebody just reading your book, and you don't know where they are, but you know that it's just them usually, and then it's just you as the author maybe, and there's a different kind of meeting. So the public meeting is different, is for a different form of story, I think, than the private meeting.